Oh, she's not gonna get it because her phone is.
Yeah.
My deductive reasoning is.
Do you believe she's outside?
I thought I saw her walk that way. I can. Do a quick walk and see if I
All
can
right.
find her.
Hi, we need Brittany.
There she is.
Okay.
I saw them lighting up and I was like, ah, can't eat my music now. I know it's gonna happen.
Okay.
I got a protein shake, I'll survive.
All right. Okay. Let's bring them in.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. I understand that somebody got caught by a train. It happens. That's happened to me before too, and you're just sitting there for 30 minutes, but at least it kept moving and didn't stop. All right, so we have someone new sitting with the state. Could you introduce yourself to the jurors, please?
Hi, my name is Marina Winter.
All right, does anyone know Ms. Winter? All right, state, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Dr. Lundy.
Hello, if you raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, if you'll take a seat, state your name for the record, please, and make sure you keep your voice up so that the jurors and the court reporter can hear.
My name is Jonathan Lundy.
Okay. Make sure, oh, they're behind me. I want to make sure I got a microphone. Oh, that's
They
okay.
put them on the floor.
Oh, okay. Want to make sure you can hear me. Thank you. Perfect. Yes, thank you. Okay, Dr. Lundy, how are you presently employed?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a surgeon at the U.S. Army Burn Center at Fort Sam Houston.
And can you tell the jury a little bit about your background?
I'm trained as a general surgeon and did a trauma, critical care, and burn surgery, as well as a hand and microvascular surgery fellowship through the Army, and have been in the military since 1993 as a surgeon since 2002.
And how long have you been with the medical center here?
I've been stationed at the burn center for 11 years total.
And can you tell the jury a little bit about the burn center? Who do they treat and how do people get there?
Sure. It's an ABA, American Burn Association verified burn center, and it serves South Central Texas for not only military, but as well as civilian burn casualties. So there's a transfer center. So if there's somebody burned in different locations around the state, they call into the transfer center, and we accept those patients as well. And those tend to be Central Texas, as well as all the way down to the border with Mexico.
Now, when someone is the victim of a significant burning, at what point do you enter the picture?
Usually they're assessed by EMS or a paramedic or fire department, and then brought to the hospital. Sometimes they're brought to an outside facility and they get transferred, or they can come directly from the scene. If it's local, such as within the San Antonio area, they're brought to the scene, and then the burn center is notified that there's a burn patient in the emergency room, and we'll go down and see the patient.
Okay. And when you are assessing burn victim, what are there anything that you look for initially as far as like your chief concerns that you need to evaluate?
Usually there's a few things that happen at once. Each patient is evaluated for life-threatening injuries related to the burn. It's not uncommon for somebody to be, for example, in a car accident, as well as be burned because they're trapped in the car. Also, other life-threatening kind of issues can be related to their inability to protect their airway and need to be intubated. And then we're assessing the depth and amount of body surface area covered by the burn as we begin game planning the resuscitation they'll need. And so specifically at the burn center or Brooke Army Medical Center, we'll see if they need to have a CT scan done before they go up to the 4th floor, which is where the burn unit is at Brooke Army Medical Center.
Okay. Are you familiar with an individual named Regina Briones?
Yes.
And how do you know Miss Briones?
I took care of her from the time she was admitted to the burn center, from the emergency department through her admission at the burn center in late 2020 into 2021. And then I've still helped take care of her from the perspective of a hand surgeon doing reconstructive procedures for burn injuries to her hands.
Now, when you said you first encountered her in the emergency.
Correct.
Room. Can you tell the jury a little bit about kind of your immediate observations and what your concerns were?
She was intubated when she got to the hospital by the emergency room staff for the amount of burns that she sustained to her face, as well as the total body surface area that was burned, which was approximately about 40% of her total body surface area. And then after that initial triage and intubation, she was brought up to the burn center where she underwent shower debridement and then assessment to determine the severity of her burns, which we look at how deep the burns are and then to what extent as far as a percentage of her total body surface area that's burned.
And for Miss Briones, what did that assessment show?
She had what I would describe as severe thermal injury, which that's in excess of 20% of the total body surface area. Hers were mapped out at about 40%, and she had inhalation injury as well.
Now, after you have assessed 40% of her body, what's the next step as far as a treatment plan at this point for her?
So a few things happen again simultaneously. We place large caliber devices into a vein and an artery for monitoring, as well as to infuse IV fluids to resuscitate the patients. Burn patients lose a lot of the volume of fluids that is in their bloodstream. And so we start that resuscitation from the point that we receive the patient at the burn center, and we monitor sometimes on a minute by minute, half hour by half hour basis, and monitor various things like urine output in different labs that show us somebody's adequacy of resuscitation.
Due to the severity of her wounds or her burns, what efforts were made to, I guess, save the skin that could be saved?
The number one to achieve salvaging any skin that's a partial thickness burn is adequate resuscitation and prevention of infection, as well as she underwent escharotomies, which is briefly when somebody has a burn that's circumferential, for example, all the way around an extremity, which hers were all the way around both arms. That skin is no longer stretchy and will not expand as it gets swollen underneath, and we will release the pressure under that skin by making an incision on either side of the extremity to decompress. And she had that done to both arms and hands. The adequacy of resuscitation is the other thing.
Okay. And there's been some testimony about skin grafting. Is that something that Ms. Briones had done?
Yes,
Did you oversee that?
yes,
Okay, can you explain to the jury the process of skin grafting?
sure. The surgical treatment of burns involves determining which burns are deep partial thickness or full thickness burns. Those will not heal within about 2 weeks or more. And we feel that those, and science has shown that those burns need to be surgically removed down to healthy tissue. And then basically we transplant skin from an unburned part of the body so that that skin can then grow over top of the wound where they were burned initially. And that process is keep going.
Yeah, I guess tell the jury, how is it that you find or determine when you have found faulty skin?
Okay. So there's two different ways that we surgically treat burns or surgically remove the burn wound. One is called tangential excision. And in simple terms, it's taking a large razor blade type device and cutting through skin and soft tissue until you get down to healthy bleeding tissue. The other is called fascial excision, and that's where you make an incision through skin, subcutaneous tissue, all the way down to the layer that invests the muscles, and take all that tissue off. And that decision is made intraoperatively based on the severity of the burns.
Of those two options, is there one that I guess would be incredibly invasive, but one that is more damaging?
The fascial excision usually indicates that the burn wound is deeper, and that we feel the wound requires excision down to that fascial layer, and removing the subcutaneous fat, the layer in between the skin and the fascia.
And which one did Ms. Briones have?
The vast majority of hers were fascially excised.
And you said 40% of her body was burned. Can you approximate how much of that had to have that excision that you were discussing?
Her neck, chest, back, upper arms, forearms, and the hands, for the most part.
And when that process is done, am I understanding you correctly that all of the fat and some of the muscle even is removed?
We leave the muscle and the tissue. It's called fascia, the tissue that invests the muscle itself. We leave that.
Okay. But all the fat tissue is gone.
Correct.
There was some testimony about her breasts, and that would be why that they had to be removed essentially.
Part of that fat on the chest wall includes the breast sometimes. Correct. In her case, it did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
There was some testimony by Dr. Chan yesterday about different procedures she had. One of which I'm going to show you Stacy exhibit number 9. Shows her neck. Can you tell the jury what was the reason that she had problems with her neck after this injury?
Likely just delay in wound healing despite excising and skin grafting the wound. Sometimes there's not typically 100% take, which is why patients have to go back for multiple operations. So there was some of the wounds didn't heal and needed to be re-excised and regrafted. And so especially on her neck, she developed quite a bit of burn scarring that led to contractures that resulted in her inability to, a lot of different problems happen with that when there's burn contractures.
And there was some testimony about her having to have a finger amputated.
Correct.
Can you tell the jury why that was?
I don't remember in her course of treatment when that occurred. If that was early in her course and it was because the tissue was dead, or if it was later because of non-functional, I don't remember.
Okay. Now, have you been seeing Ms. Briones in the emergency room?
No, not in the emergency room.
Around the time of the incident. Has she had other procedures with you?
Oh, yes, sorry. She's, as a hand surgeon, I've done multiple reconstructive procedures on her hands for some of the functional problems related to her burns of her hands.
And can you tell the jury, what are those functional problems she's had with her hands?
When burns cause scarring in the hands, they affect the palms especially. And it makes it difficult to do various things around the house. So we talk about activities of daily living. So you ask about things like picking up a cell phone, using the restroom, and being able to toilet, feed yourself, drive, things like that can be affected. In her case, I don't remember the specifics of what was affected negatively, but there were several digits that had contractures that limited her function, that needed contracture release, and then various operations on the joints of those fingers.
Contracture, well, can you explain what that is?
When a burn heals, there are several factors that go into making it. Even if you put skin graft on to a burn, the tissue can contract down as it scars, so it doesn't remain flat like it is normally in non-burn skin. And as that pulls down, for example, with her neck, one of the probably most extreme examples in her case, it pulls tissue down along with it. And it's thick. It makes the areas non-functional. For her hands, you can't open the digits to grasp something, things like that.
Is it fair in layman's terms, it makes it very dense,
Yes,
so it's not as flexible?
correct.
Now, you mentioned before that severe burns can be fatal. Was that ever a concern with Ms. Briones' case?
Yes.
And was there, looking at her treatment, was it the day she arrived, or did it take some time to get to a stable condition for her?
There was, I don't remember how long in her course, but from the time she came into the emergency department, well into her hospital course, the discussion that was had with her mother, who was involved, was that she is at risk for dying from her injuries and some of the infections that developed as a result of her burns. And that lasted well into the month of December. So several weeks into her care.
There was also some testimony about her being heavily medicated and saying she woke up several months later. Can you explain to the jury why she was heavily medicated? Why did she have to stay at the hospital for so long?
Usually what I explain to families when a family member gets burned and it's severe, I explain that a patient will need to undergo the resuscitation. They'll need to be in the ICU for an extended period of time. They're in the case that the patient we're discussing now, that they are definitely at risk from dying from their injuries. And some expectations that I try to give some examples of is that they'll be in the hospital for 1 to 2 days per percent total body surface area burned, and they'll need 1 to 2 operations for every 10% total body surface area burn. And that's a rough estimate, but kind of gives some evidence or some guidance to the families about expectations. It's a little bit of a difficult explanation. It's not like appendicitis where you're in one day and out the next. For her in the ICU, we talk about organs that are dysfunctional, lungs being an important one. When somebody's lungs don't work on their own, they need a breathing tube put in and a machine to breathe for them, which she had done early on her arrival to the emergency department. A lot of those things require a lot of medications to control pain and anxiety. And so people talk about a medically induced coma. That's a good, I guess, layman's term to describe it, but somebody's kept sedate and comfortable during their stay. So it's not uncommon for somebody to have minimal to any recollection during that course in the ICU in their intensive care stay until they're much more recovered from their injuries that they don't remember.
And since her release in, I believe, March of 2021, she's continued reaching to you. You said her hand
Correct.
operation. Is she done with her treatment with you?
No, she still needs ongoing treatment.
And what, does she have any procedures planned?
Her small finger, I believe, on her left hand still has a very non-functional, painful contracture that needs operative treatment. That I believe she's waiting for insurance approval for that.
I'll pass the whole down.
Defense.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Lundy, good afternoon. Just a couple of questions. I think you told the jurors, it caught my attention, that you talked to Regina's mom at all times after treatment.
I talked to her mom after her treatment's correct.
Okay,
I didn't talk to her specifically after every one. We have a team of people that help take care of her, but there's multiple updates to the family that occurs.
okay, but is Regina's mother the only person that would accompany her to these treatments or these, I guess, hospital visits?
The specifics when I'm talking about was an extended period of time in the hospital in an intensive care unit. There wasn't a leave the hospital, come back. We had a contact number for her mom that we would call whenever she had a procedure done, surgical procedure. We would get consent for the procedure from her mother, call her after the procedure was done. And when she was very critically ill, some kind of end of life discussions, concerns about what she would want done. We talked with the mother over the phone.
Okay, but do you recall if you ever spoke to an individual by the name of Aaron Trevino during these procedures or during these hospital visits?
I don't remember.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lundy. No further questions, Judge.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
He's excused.
Excused by the defense, Your Honor.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. All right, thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Jen. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Detective Mendez.
Thank you, sir.
Right here. Hi. Could you raise your right hand for me, please?
Yes, ma'am.
You just solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you out.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand. Just make sure you keep your voice up so the court reporter and the jurors could hear. If you could state your name for the record, please.
It's Sergeant Rachel Mendez.
Right, state.
Okay. Detective Mendez, how are you presently employed?
Right now I'm a sergeant with the San Antonio Police Department and I work with the Internal Affairs Unit.
Okay. And how long have you been with the San Antonio Police Department?
I joined the academy in 2006.
And just roughly, can you give the jury an idea of what units you've been assigned to and how long?
Sure. So in 2006, I joined the department. And then in 2009, I went to what's called the crisis response team as a patrol officer. So my job at that time was to basically help victims of family violence in understanding what resources are available to them, how to apply for protective orders, what is the process in filing charges, researching their history as far as is there any prior cases involving that perpetrator, and help trying to guide them through the criminal system. So that was from 2009 until 2017 when I promoted to a detective. Once I promoted, I went to the Special Victims Unit, and that's when I continued to work family violence cases. So at that point, I went from patrol to detective. And so my job at that point was to actually file those criminal cases.
And when did you get promoted to sergeant?
I promoted to sergeant last year around March.
And you are now in internal affairs?
Yes, ma'am.
Um. Now, while you were a detective with the Special Victims Unit, well, first of all, what is the Special Victims Unit?
Special Victims Unit is a specialized unit that handles, it's broken down into two separate entities. So one side handles family violence cases, which would be like injury to elderly, any kind of assault, aggravated assault, where there's a familial relationship, injury to child. And then there's the other side that handles basically sex offenses. So any sex offense involving an adult or a child.
And it also includes dating relations.
Yes, ma'am.
So between your work with the critical response team and SVU, how many years did you spend working in family violence?
From 2009 until 2000 and last year, 22.
So if you can estimate, how many victims of family violence have you worked with over the years?
I would say probably thousands. I mean, quite a few.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you are assessing these cases throughout your entire career with SAP, does it ever surprise you when victims are uncooperative?
No, ma'am.
Why is that?
There's a lot of factors that come into play. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes there's children involved. Sometimes they truly care about the perpetrator. I've seen cases where the perpetrator will turn it on the victim and it's their fault. And, you know, for example, if you hadn't have said this to me, then it wouldn't have made me angry and it wouldn't have made me do this to you. So a lot of times the victims will internalize it and think that, well, it's my fault. I shouldn't have said this and this and this. Or, I'm sorry. Or sometimes,
Judge, I'm gonna object under 702. I don't think that Sergeant Mendez has been qualified to give this statement regarding why doesn't surprise her that victims would not cooperate. And so because of 702, I'm objecting to this testimony.
All right, state if you wanted to lay the foundation, otherwise the objection is sustained.
Okay. Detective Mendez, or I'm sorry, Sergeant Mendez.
it's okay.
Did you receive any specialized training while you were working with family violence victims?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, can you tell the jury what that included?
I've attended conferences, trainings involving cycle of violence, the power and control wheel. It's been many throughout the years.
And you mentioned the cycle of violence and the power of control, are those established principles throughout the family violence field of law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you approximate how many trainings in family violence you would have attended over your years?
Quite a few. I can't put a number on it.
Did you receive trainings in how to assess family violence cases?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you receive any specific training as far as what you refer to as the cycle of violence?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the cycle of violence?
So a lot of time, the cycle of violence is basic.
Again, I'm objecting under 703. I don't think that the proper foundation has been laid for Sergeant Mendez to talk about the cycle of violence without further foundation. She can't testify as to what the cycle of violence is.
All right, state if you want to lay the foundation. Objection is sustained.
Okay. So. How many cases over the years, I guess as a detective is when you started actually investigating cases, correct?
Yes. As far as filing them with the district attorney's office, yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you were, deciding cases to file with the district attorney's office, did you ever receive any training to help you assess, how much of without saying what the training was, the cooperation of the victim as to, the proof of the case?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Did you, in your training, did you specifically receive training as to, reasons why a victim might not be cooperative?
Yes, ma'am.
And, if you could approximate, how many trainings have you attended?
I would say maybe 30, 40 throughout the years.
What kind of organizations would put on these trainings?
So some of them were through the Battered Women's Shelter, the Family Violence and Prevention Services. I think that some were through the Family Justice Center. I'd have to look through my records.
Have you ever, examined articles or publications, discussing, the issue as to victims and their offenders and their relationship?
Yes, ma'am. I actually went to college and received my bachelor's in social work, and we learned a lot about the power and control wheel during that time.
And where did you go to school?
Texas Tech.
So, between your college education and your experience on the force, you learned about, is it safe to say that you also observed
Yes, ma'am.
these theories that you learned about? And
Yes,
were
ma'am.
trained on? And, in your experience, did you see cases where victims, would be uncooperative and then go back to their offenders?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I'm gonna continue my objection under 702. I don't think Sergeant Mendez has testified regarding what courses specifically, where she took them, what publications she read, what publications she's relying on the cycle of violence. I mean, we've heard generalities. I've taken these courses, that courses, approximately 30 to 40, but we don't know the specifics of what she took to give the jury an expert opinion.
Sustained.
Well, let's move on. Are you familiar with Regina Briones?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you know Miss Briones?
I was contacted by my supervisor while I was working at the Special Victims Unit, that there was a female victim at SAMC who wanted to tell her story about why she was burned. She had been in a coma for, I believe, a couple of months already, but she was ready to tell somebody what had happened.
And what did you do after your supervisor told you that?
So I contacted SAMC to see if she was available to speak. I eventually made contact with her, told her who I was, the unit that I worked for, and asked her what had happened.
Okay. And when you made contact with her, where was she?
She was at the hospital still.
And do you recall the month or the date when you first made contact with her?
I believe it was in February
Of what year?
of, I think, 2021. I'd have to look at my report.
When you first made contact with her at the hospital, was she awake?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you observe when you first saw her?
She was almost completely bandaged. I remember that she wanted to take a drink of water, but she couldn't move because she was so bandaged up that she couldn't bring it to her mouth. So I had to get a nurse to help her.
Okay. Was she able to talk?
Yes.
And when you were discussing with her, without going into what was said, did she establish what you felt were the elements of a crime?
Yes, ma'am.
What was her, if you could tell through the bandages, what was her demeanor while she was talking to you?
No, object to speculation, Judge.
That'll be overruled.
Her demeanor, I feel like she was kind of torn about where she wanted to go with the case. She wanted to say what happened, but at the same time, there was a little bit of reluctance.
Okay. Was anyone with her when you first met with her?
Just the nurses that were going in and out.
And so after that first meeting with her, what did you do?
So I had basically explained to her that I needed to have photos taken of her injuries because that's the evidence to part of the evidence to the crime. So when I had initially followed back up with her to have those photos taken, she had changed her mind and decided that she didn't want to file charges anymore.
Did her not wanting to file charges, was that enough for you to not want to pursue the case?
No, ma'am.
So what did you do next?
So a lot of times we look at the history, especially in family violence cases, to see if there's any prior incidents that had occurred. And at the time, there was a no contact order in place because of a theft of person charge that involved Ms. Briones as the victim and Mr. Trevino as the defendant. And so he wasn't supposed to have contact with her.
I'm sorry, what was the name of the individual on the protective order?
On the no contact order, it was it was Regina Briones.
So you were aware that they had history, that there was a history of violence?
Yes, ma'am.
What steps did you take in the investigation after that?
So at that point, I requested a warrant for the violation of that no contact order.
When looking at the case, were you able to, I guess, find an offense report that correlated with when her burning would have occurred?
I believe so. There was an incident detail report. Yes.
Okay. So did you do anything with that information?
I believe that the no contact order was issued prior to that incident. So because body camera showed that he was with her at that scene, he was in violation of that no contact order.
Okay. Did you go out and speak to anybody
Or
in investigating this case besides Miss Briones? Did you speak to anyone else?
yes, I spoke to her mother. I spoke to the neighbor who called 911 when the incident occurred. And I think that's it. An investigator, Moncada, with the fire department as well.
Okay. And why was it important to talk to an officer with the fire department?
Because I'm not familiar with fire and how what happens to individuals when they're burned. I remember watching the body worn camera for the day that the incident happened. And when you see Miss Briones in the video, she doesn't look then like she does now. And the story that was told to the officers at that time was that it was an accident.
Object to hearsay, Judge.
Sustained.
Sorry.
Other than the IDR or the incident detail report from that day, were there any other records that you looked into in your investigation?
So I researched the prior address that Miss Briones and Mr. Trevino lived together at, and found that there were several incidents where officers were called out for family violence.
What about medical records? Did you seek out any medical records?
I think I had Miss Briones sign a medical release form, but I don't remember if I got the documentation or not.
Okay. Did you ever meet with Mr. Trevino at all?
No, ma'am.
Now, you mentioned that at one point, Ms. Briones decided she didn't want to proceed anymore.
Right.
Did she change her opinion again at some point in the investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that change how you were proceeding at all?
As far as the actual fire incident, yes. Because I needed her cooperation to give a formal statement and have photos taken in order to proceed with the case.
Okay. And then once you got all of this information together, what did you do?
That is when I requested a warrant for aggravated assault, serious bodily injury for Mr. Trevino.
So, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, through your investigation, did you have an opinion as to what deadly weapon was used?
Well, it essentially was the lighter that caused the gasoline to ignite and cause the injury to her body.
And and was that, when was the warrant to arrest Mr. Trevino issued?
I'd have to look at my reports, but I think May, if I'm not mistaken,
May of what year?
2021.
And were you present when he was arrested on that warrant?
No, ma'am.
I'll pass the message.
Defense.
Thank you, Judge. Sergeant Mendez, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Have this mic pointed at me, but if you can't hear me, just let me know.
Okay.
So Sergeant Mendez, you told the jurors a couple of minutes ago that there was I think you called it, is it a protective order?
A no contact order.
No contact order?
Yes, sir.
Is that similar to a protective order?
So a no contact order is in place while an individual is out on bond for a case. Whereas a protective order is an order that's granted usually through the district attorney's office and
Okay.
lasts for 2 years.
And what you talked about was a no contact order,
Yes, sir.
right? And this just meant that, for example, Mr. Trevino couldn't have any contact with Ms. Briones, correct?
Right.
Okay. Okay, now, you then told the jurors that you reviewed some video, and I'm guessing, is it the video of Ms. Briones and Mr. Trevino the day of the fire incident?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you told the jurors that based on that video is when you decided to issue the warrant for violation of the no contact order?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So tell the jurors about issuing the warrant for Ms. Briones.
I'm confused.
Right, so you told the jurors the no contact order, right,
Mhm.
was so that Mr. Trevino couldn't have contact with Ms. Briones, correct?
Right,
But in that video you talked about, Ms. Briones was at Mr. Trevino's house,
right,
correct? And Ms. Briones told you, I went to his house, correct?
right.
Okay, so did you issue a warrant on Ms. Briones for violating the no contact order?
No, sir, because she didn't sign the no contact order. The no contact order was for him as a condition of his bond. She was not out on bond. He
So
was out
even-
on bond.
Okay, so let me just make sure the jury understands this.
Okay.
So even though Mr. Trevino was at his house
Mhm.
and Ms. Briones voluntarily went to his house, knowing there was a no contact order, you still arrested Mr. Trevino for that?
Yes, sir, because it's still a violation because he still signs that he understands as a condition of his bond that he is not to have contact with her.
I get that. I think the jury understands that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is the contact was made by Ms. Briones, right?
Mhm.
And you still issued an arrest warrant for this gentleman, right?
Objection to ask and answer, Madam.
That would be overruled.
I'll move on, Judge. During your investigation of this case, Sergeant Mendez, you spoke to Delfina Briones, right?
Yes, sir.
And then at some point, I believe you tried, or well, you contacted
Mhm.
Regina's ex-husband, correct?
Yes, sir. I attempted to contact him. Yes.
You just didn't come for an interview, correct?
No, sir.
Now, I'll go into the dates of when you met with Ms. Briones, but, because you met with Ms. Briones individually as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You never met her at a motel, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. And you also never met her at, somebody's grandma's house, correct?
No, sir.
Now, you got assigned this case on February 23rd, 2021, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
And you, I guess, the incident you were investigating had to do with some fire that was caused, correct?
Yes, sir.
At that time, you knew nothing more other than what was told to you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During the course of your investigation, however, you find out that at this household,
Mhm.
in addition to Mr. Trevino and Ms. Briones, there's two other individuals in it, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's a stepbrother
Mhm.
and then the dad, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Was there a child? Was there an infant in the house?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Was there another young lady there at the house other than Ms. Briones?
So my understanding was that the house was kind of separated, if I'm not mistaken, where there was kind of like a front house and then a back house. So it depends on what you mean by that, because sometimes people have like a front living facility and then it's separated.
Right,
Does that make sense?
it makes sense.
So that was kind of how I understood was, yes, there was somebody in the front, but this was kind of a separated back house.
Okay. Did you ever do more to determine whether there was somebody in that back house?
No, sir,
Okay.
because I wasn't under the impression that anybody else was there in the back with them.
So there was, it's your impression and your testimony to the jury that there was no other female in that house that day.
That there was no other female with them in that back portion.
Okay, all right. You didn't talk to the dad who was there, correct?
No, sir.
You also didn't talk to that stepbrother who was in the house, correct?
No, sir.
On March 24th, 2021, that's when you first made contact with Ms. Briones, correct?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at my report.
Okay. Do you have a copy of your report?
With me here? No, I don't.
So, if you remember, that visit was at her mother's house, correct?
I did have a visit with her at her mother's house. Yes.
Okay, and again, just to make sure we understand, it wasn't at a hotel, correct?
No, sir.
Or at somebody's grandmother's house, right?
No.
Okay. During that meeting on March 24th, 2021, your purpose, based on your report, was to get an understanding of why Regina poured gasoline on herself, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I believe you stated that she wanted to kill herself. Is that right?
So I think in my report, that was something she did tell me at the time, yes.
Let's talk about your report for a second, just so the jury can understand. Sergeant Mendez, this report that you write,
Mhm.
right? These are all reports that have to do with your recollection of those interviews, correct?
Right,
So there's nothing in these reports that wasn't told to you.
right.
In other words, you're not gonna add anything to this report that wasn't told to you, correct?
No, sir.
And I hope that you wouldn't delete or leave stuff out.
No, sir. That would be
Okay, so
unethical.
this is, okay, this is exactly what,
Right.
okay. Then, on March 24th, 2021, I think you told the jury that first interview is when Regina said, I don't want to press charges anymore, right?
So I met her at the hospital. Because there were several times that I met with her. So I met her at the hospital. She told me what happened. That's when she told me that she poured gasoline on herself. But she had said that Mr. Trevino flicked the lighter. Then when I went back to get a little bit more detail about why she poured the gasoline on herself, she changed her mind, didn't want to pursue charges. And if I'm not mistaken, she told me that she was under the impression that Mr. Trevino had a family member that was in prison and was afraid that that individual would go after her family.
Okay.
So she became uncooperative at that point.
Okay, let's go, yeah, let's clear that up. Okay. So March 1st, 2021 is when you contacted Regina at the hospital, right? That was your first meeting with her, correct?
Yes, at the hospital. Yes, sir.
That's where you learn about her going over to Aaron's house on
Yes, sir.
November, correct?
Mhm.
And she told you that she went to the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
She didn't tell you that Aaron's dad picked her up, correct?
I don't remember.
Okay. During that meeting on March 1st, 2021, she didn't tell you that Ms. Briones and Aaron had just finished having sex, correct?
I don't remember that.
She also didn't tell you that, or she claims that she had just cooked pork chops for Mr. Trevino.
I don't remember that.
Okay. Now you're talking about flicking a lighter, right?
Yes,
And I
sir.
think the word flicking, I think you write that in your report, you use flick the lighter.
Right.
Right? But are you telling the juror like you flicked the lighter on or like you flicked it at a person?
No, so I remember her telling me that he didn't actually light it, that just flicking it caused the spark, which ignited the gasoline.
Okay. And she tells you in this meeting
Mhm.
that he had the lighter.
The first one, yes. When she initially told me what happened, yes, she said that he had the lighter.
Right, because during this first meeting, she tells you, hey, Aaron had the lighter,
Mhm.
right? Then in subsequent meetings, and we'll get to those,
Mhm.
she tells you, no, I had the lighter, right? Like I, Regina Briones, had the lighter.
I don't remember. I'd have to read my report.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to March 24th, and I apologize, I wasn't trying to mislead you. So you met with her March 1st, 2021 at the hospital.
Right.
Then March 24th, 2021, right? You meet her at her mother's house,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. And that's when you asked her, hey, I need a better understanding of why you would pour gasoline on yourself, correct? Okay. And then she tells you, I just wanted to kill myself, correct?
I believe that's what she told me, yes.
Okay. And then, okay. Then you end that interview. And then I believe the next time you reach out after that is on May 3rd, you call Jesus Sanchez, and Jesus Sanchez is Regina's children's biological father, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're able to speak with him and set up a meeting, correct?
I believe so, yes.
But this gentleman, Mr. Sanchez, did not go to the meeting, correct?
Right.
Then, on May 12, 2021, you meet with Regina and her mom again, correct?
I don't remember. I think so. Because we had several meetings. I think I went to the hospital, to her mom's house, to the hospital again, and then I think back to the mom's house.
During this May 12, 2021 meeting was, at Regina, I submit to you was at Regina's mom's house. You remember talking to Regina's mom, a lady by the name of Elfrida Briones?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, she never told you that she kicked Regina out, right?
Object to hearsay or.
That'll be sustained.
Okay. Regina never told you that she was kicked out by her mom, correct?
I think she did, but I don't remember. I'd have to read my report.
If it's not in the report, then what does that mean? That she didn't tell you that?
Mm. If I didn't put it in the report, then I don't know, I probably didn't say that, or maybe I missed it, or I didn't think it was important at the time.
Okay. Sergeant Mendez, everything in this report is important, correct?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be in this report,
Yes, sir.
right? Did you have a chance before meeting with the jury today to review your reports?
Yes.
When did you review them?
I reviewed them yesterday.
Did you have copies of them with you?
Not with me, no, sir.
Did you not think it would be important to bring them to give the jury an understanding of what happened those days?
Objection, Your Honor. These reports are not admissible to the jury.
All right, that'll be overruled. You can answer the question.
I didn't think that usually I get a copy from the prosecutor.
And you didn't get a copy today?
No, sir.
Now, on the May 12, 2021, meeting with Ms. Briones, I think you just told the juror, she didn't tell you that her mom ever kicked her out, correct?
I don't remember.
She told you that the reason she went to Aaron's house was for a barbecue, right?
Yes, sir.
She didn't say anything about going to return lingerie, correct?
No, sir.
She didn't tell you anything about going to make pork chops, right?
No, sir.
Okay. I think you told the jury that she also did not tell you that they had sex, correct?
No, sir.
Then she changes her story again and tells you that on May 12, 2021, she changes her story and tells you that now she did intend to kill herself.
Your Honor, I object to the compound question.
All right, that'll be overruled. Oh, you can answer the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, on May
What was the
12,
question?
2021,
Mhm.
she changes her story.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And tells you now that her intentions were to kill herself.
Yes, sir.
Now, there was another time Sergeant Mendez, and it was during the meeting on May 12, 2021. You're going through her cell phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're going through the messages or her cell phone. By she, I mean Regina's cell phone,
Yes, sir.
right? And as you're reading these messages, you ask her, hey, you're not trying to get back with Aaron Trevino, are you? You did ask her that question.
Yes,
correct?
sir. Mhm.
Now, after the, I think on May 26, 2021 is when you had the interview planned with Jesus Sanchez, and he did not show up, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When was the last day, Sergeant Mendez, that you stopped I guess, I mean, I know you're still working on it. When was the last time you stopped working on this investigation?
So if I'm not mistaken, once Mr. Trevino was arrested for the warrant and the arson investigator conducted an interview with him, then I sent the case to the district attorney's office.
Okay, do you know when that was?
I don't remember.
You may have told the jury, I don't know, when was the warrant issued?
I don't remember.
Thank you, Sergeant Mendes. No further questions, Judge.
All right, state.
Your Honor. I have a few questions, sorry. Okay. Okay, Sergeant Mendez. How many times in total did you talk to Regina? Do you recall?
I can't tell you 100%, 3-4 times, I
Would
think.
it assist you to refresh your recollection with your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Your ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, I'm handing you what for identification purposes only is stated in the summary. Is that your report?
Yes, ma'am.
You review your report, and then if your memory is refreshed, tell me how many times you spoke to Regina.
Okay, so I contacted her on March 1st. I attempted to contact her on March 23rd. I had a missed call from her on the 29th of March. I attempted to contact her back and didn't get an answer. And I apologize
Okay.
because I had to do a supplement. I contacted her on May 12th. And I believe that was the last day.
Okay, now, in addition to the witnesses that you interviewed and the reports that you reviewed, did you ever ask, photos to be taken or request photos or anything like that?
Photos of Regina?
Yes.
Yes.
What about, photos of the scene? Were those taken at some point?
So I didn't get involved in the case until after the fact. I believe there were a couple of photos taken the night of the incident.
What about, photos of Mr. Trevino? Did you order those to be taken?
So I did not have photos taken of Mr. Trevino. I think that there were some taken of him when he was arrested on one of the warrants.
Where is Detective Padilla assigned?
He is with the, at the time, he was with the night detectives unit.
Okay, I want to clarify some of the things that were brought up on file in your report. So March 1st, that would have been the first time that you met with Regina in the hospital.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay. And that day is when she told you that it was a spark from Mr. Trevino's lighter.
Yes, ma'am.
Ignited the gasoline.
Yes, ma'am.
And she told you that she poured the gasoline on herself.
Yes, ma'am.
but you also testified that she was hesitant.
Yes, ma'am.
So the next contact, March 24th. In between when you spoke to her March 1st and March 24th. Is that when the no contact order violation was, when you pursued that one?
Yes, ma'am.
So after that, is it safe to say that you were looking into the assault itself?
Yes, ma'am.
And so March 24th, the next time you spoke to Regina, was that at the hospital?
No, ma'am, that was at her mother's home.
And I believe you started to answer with defense counsel. Do you recall specifically what family member Regina was scared of that day?
She told me it was his stepdad.
And did she express a reason to you as to why on that day she didn't want to proceed?
She had brought up his stepdad and that she was fearful that he would go after her family if she cooperated.
And that was also the day when she first said she wanted to.
Yes, ma'am.
And to be clear, was she the one that brought that up, or was she simply answering what you had asked her?
She was answering what I had asked her.
And then how quickly after that did she seem to change her mind again and decide to cooperate?
So that was on March 24th, and then I had a missed call on March 29th.
But to be clear, she never said that she lit herself on fire, did she?
No, she never said that.
Even when she wasn't wanting to pursue.
No.
Now, when you cooperate, or when you worked with the arson team on this case, was it important to consult with them in order to confirm that what she stated could actually happen?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to get that confirmation?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall in the beginning, were you able to see if Regina had said it was an accident when this first happened?
As far as the initial call to police, yes, during the review of the body worn camera, that's initially what she had told officers.
And what was the nature, and when she said it was an accident, what did she say had caused the fire?
That she was smoking a cigarette and had tripped over a gas can in the backyard.
Did she have any burns on her legs that you recall?
I don't remember.
Where was the most significant burning that you saw?
It was to her face, her neck, and her upper body.
So after that March 24th incident, sorry, not incident, but the conversation where she wasn't cooperative, did she ever go back and forth again with you?
I don't believe so after that.
Without going into what her mother said, did you talk at length with her mom?
Yes, ma'am.
And did her mother seem supportive of her?
Yes, ma'am.
Did her mother, with what you discussed with her, did it confirm a lot of your concerns as to the nature of the relationship with
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Trevino and Regina?
Yes, ma'am.
And is corroboration another key element when you're looking at an offense like this?
Yes, ma'am.
And did that sufficiently corroborate the nature of the relationship to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you spoke a little bit with defense about her cell phone. When you were looking at her phone, were you able to corroborate messages from the night of the incident? With what had occurred?
I don't remember. I don't specifically remember what was on the phone.
Okay. When you researched the calls for service between the defendant and Regina, do you recall how many calls for service you located involving
So
to
I-
Regina?
I listed them in my report. There was one on September 19th of 2020, September 28th of 2020, October 2nd of the same year, October 5th, October 5th again, October 5th again, October 9th of 2020, October 10th of 2020, October 20th of 2020, October 26th of 2020. November 3rd of 2020, November 3rd again, November 5th, November 12th, November 12th again. Sorry, November 13th and November 16th.
So then November 16th would have been the prior call before the burning, correct?
Yes, I listed on here that it was a call for a 911 open line for a female telling a male to let me go.
Was the female in that service call, was she cooperative?
I'm not sure.
I'll pass the witness.
Defense.
Yes, Judge, can I approach real quick?
Approach the
Sorry,
witness. Yes.
Sergeant Mendes. Sorry, Sergeant Mendes, I just want to see what reports you have. Does this include your supplementary? reports
Yes.
as well?
Mhm.
Okay, that's, okay. So, you told the jurors, Sergeant Mendes, that on March 24th, 2021, you're talking to Ms. Briones, and then there's this stepdad that's that's apparently in prison, and this guy or the stepdad's gonna threaten Regina and her family, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But Regina never tells you the name of this stepdad, correct?
I don't remember her telling me his actual name.
You can look at your report if you want to refresh your memory.
Yeah, all I put was that it was Aaron's stepdad that he was getting released.
Okay, so she doesn't tell you, correct?
No, sir.
And you also don't ask her either, right?
No, sir.
She also doesn't tell you what he's incarcerated for, correct?
I don't remember her telling me that, no.
If she did, it'd be in your report, correct?
It should be.
But it's not. Right?
It's not in here, no.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's not in your
Yes,
report.
no,
Okay.
no, it's not in my report.
She then tells you something about some unknown Aaron's cousin, right?
Yes,
But she doesn't give you a name either, correct?
no, sir.
And you don't ask her for a name either, correct?
No, sir.
Now, there is, I think it's part of your supplementary report, Sergeant Mendez. I'm not, let me see if I can get the date correct. I believe it's the report, supplementary report that you prepared on May 18th, 2021. And it's, that particular report has 8 pages.
Yes, sir.
You could find it.
Yes, sir. I have that one.
Found it, okay. If you do me a favor and go to page 3 of 8
Okay.
on that report. I think it's the second to last paragraph of that report. That's a summary of your interview with Regina on May the 12th, 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You said May 24th, right?
May.
Oh, I'm sorry, May
May
12th.
12th,
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Right, that's where Regina tells you that she's the one that had a lighter, right?
Let me review it real quick.
Sure.
Yes, sir. So she said she had a lighter in her hand, but dropped it.
Okay. On your March 24th meeting with her, she tells you that Aaron had the lighter, correct?
Let me review that real quick. On the March 24th.
Yes.
So March 24th is when we didn't talk about the lighter.
Okay.
Are you talking about the initial conversation with her at the hospital?
I'm sorry, March 1st, excuse me, March 1st.
Okay, no, that's
I
okay.
apologize.
No, that's okay. She said that he held up the lighter.
Now, you just told the jury that Regina Briones tells you, hey, I want to go through with this because, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to go through with it because I'm being threatened or something like that, right?
Right.
We don't know, the jury doesn't know who the name of this stepdad is or the name of this uncle is, correct?
Right.
Okay. So you tell the jury that she decides to cooperate, or no, that she stops cooperating with you because of those alleged threats, right?
Right.
But does Regina tell you that she continues to see Aaron after meeting with you?
No, sir.
She doesn't tell you that,
I don't remember her telling me that.
but you do confront her, and I think that's on May 12th. You do confront her when you're reading her text messages, and you ask her, hey, are you trying to get back with this guy, right?
Yes, sir.
You don't ask her, hey, Regina, is Aaron trying to get back with you, right? You don't ask her that question.
No, I don't remember asking her that.
You ask her specifically, are you, Regina Briones, trying to get back with Aaron Trevino, correct?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Judge.
Straight.
A few more. When you asked her if she was trying to get back with Aaron Trevino, what was her response?
I don't remember. I know I talked about it. Hold on. She said no.
And going back to the page 3 of 8 in your supplements where Regina discusses having a lighter. Does she say that her lighter was the one that lit her on fire?
So I put that she stated that she had a lighter in her hand but dropped it. And that she looked for the lighter she dropped. And when she looked up, she saw Aaron holding a lighter.
So she still maintained it was Aaron.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
lit her on.
Yes, ma'am.
Despite all of the conversations and all of her back and forth and reluctance, did she ever say that she lit her own self on fire?
No, ma'am.
Did she ever say that she wasn't the one that poured gasoline on herself?
No, ma'am.
So she's always admitted she poured the gasoline,
Yes, ma'am.
but she's maintained that Aaron was the one that lit her on fire.
Yes, ma'am.
And after March 24th, which was when she was uncooperative, on May 12th, when you asked her if she was trying to kill herself that night, what did she say?
I want to say that she told me, hold on. I think she said she would just wanted it to stop. I'm trying to find where we talked about that. I don't remember.
On page 3 of 8, I believe it's the same paragraph as the letter.
I'm sorry. Yes, I asked her if her intentions were to kill herself and she said no. She, quote, just wanted him to stop.
No further questions, Sean.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse for this.
Actually, you got defense, Your Honor.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense.
Ma'am,
All right, thank you.
what do I do with the?
Oh, just leave it there.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess. If I could have everyone back here, we'll line back up at 3:25, so that'll give everyone enough to take a short break. Remember what I said? You've heard some evidence in this case. You're not to do any research or discuss anything amongst yourself or begin deliberation. Make sure your badges are visible, so if someone's around talking, they'll know that you're on a jury. Do not do any investigation. Everything that you need to know about this case will come from inside this courtroom. All right, everyone, please rise. Oh, please be seated. I wonder, is it still cold outside? Do we know what the temperature is?
It was cold when I last went out.
Yeah, it was really windy.
It was really.
I'm just guessing by the force of the wind, that there's a bunch of cold air coming in. I'm
59 degrees.
See, that's my problem. When it's windy, that means everything that I'm allergic to is getting blown around.
Well, you got 3 days of it and then we're back in the 80s. Think winter might be over this weekend.
That was the one good thing about the mask. You know, what, as long as I wear my mask, I don't have any allergy problems.
And it keeps your face warm when it's cold outside.
You know, I was thinking this afternoon, my congestion feels better, and I wonder if it's because I've been wearing a mask all day.
Yeah. Yes, we're ready.
All right, to the jury.
Right, everyone, please be seated. State, would you call your next witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Donovan Miller now.
All right, could you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand if you'll state your name for the record and keep your voice up so the jurors and the court reporter can hear, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'm investigator Jonathan Villanueva.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Judge, I'm gonna object to investigator Villanueva. The defense has no notice that the investigator Villanueva was we were notified regarding.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, remember my instructions. If you could wait out in the hallway for me for just a moment, please. All right, everyone, please rise. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, defense, you stated that you were not given notice of this, Mr. Villanueva as a witness.
That's correct, Judge.
All right, state, was he given notice?
Your Honor, there was no request for witness list filed in this case, and no, he does not have notice of Mr. Villanueva specifically. However, Mr. Villanueva is with the arson unit, and the arson unit was involved in this investigation.
Defense,
Judge, we submitted a defendant's request for discovery and Brady material, asking for a complete list of names and addresses of any witnesses the state intends to call. Additionally, Mr. Michael Villarreal, excuse me, submitted to defense counsel on January 30th, 2023, the state's third amended list of witnesses, and it does not include this investigator, Judge.
state,
Your Honor, again, as far as I know, the witness list was not ruled upon. Which I'd have to look at his motion in particular. I did review filings. I did not see a request for a witness list, probably because it's titled discovery.
all right.
So if I could have a minute to inspect his motion, Your Honor.
I'll let you review to see his motion, and then the court will make its ruling.
Yes, Judge. This is the one. Written. Well, these are several, but these are
Okay.
the last one that Michael sent me.
No, I know what Michael
Oh,
filed. I'm looking at
Sorry.
your-
If you want to get any page, I'll let you know where.
Okay. Well. I will. Proceed.
All right, then the witness is not allowed to testify.
Okay, Your Honor. Sorry.
All right, are there any other witnesses that the state will call?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll bring the jurors back in. Yes, that you could bring them in.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the witness's objection is sustained and the witness will not be testifying. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state rests.
Defense.
Judge, the defense rests, if we could just approach outside the
Yes.
presence of the jury,
All right.
Your Honor, the board, please.
of course.
All right, ladies, gentlemen. What's going to happen now is you're going to be able to beat rush hour traffic today. We're going to come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. and at 9 a.m. You will hear closing arguments from each side. Now, remember my instructions. I just given them to you a few minutes ago, but you're not allowed to talk to each other about this case. You're not allowed to start deliberating in your own mind or with anyone else. You're not allowed to do any research on social media. You're not allowed to do any investigation. Make sure your badges are visible. Does everyone understand? All right, so we'll be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're going to start at 9, even though I have a docket. I'm going to proceed with this first and then the docket afterwards. So remember what I told you before? At the parking garage, everybody parks there. So everybody usually have hearings that start here at 9, so everybody's here before 9. So if you want to get a parking space at the parking garage, it would probably help you to be here about 8:30. Okay? All right. Any other questions before I release you? All right, everyone, please rise. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, defense, you have a motion. And everyone can remain seated because it's easier for the microphones to pick up and I'll be able to hear better.
Yes, Judge. Thank you, Judge. At this time, the defense would like to move for a directed verdict. The state or the defense contends, Your Honor, that the state has not met or has not proven every single element of this offense beyond the reasonable doubt. For example, the state was not able to prove that a lighter in the manner of its use and intended use was capable of causing death and serious bodily injury to Regina Briones. There was no testimony that a lighter was a deadly weapon. There's no testimony that a lighter was the cause of the serious bodily injury. There was some testimony that the burns were caused by gasoline that the complainant poured on herself, but there's no testimony whatsoever from any expert or any state witness that the deadly weapon in this case was a lighter, and that the manner for which it was used would cause the serious bodily injury. And so for that, Your Honor, because the state has not met that element of the offense, we're asking the court to rule on the defense request for a directed verdict.
All right, state.
Your Honor, I believe Ms. Briones satisfied that in her testimony alone, that she had gasoline that she had poured on herself, and it was not until Mr. Trevino lit a lighter and caused a spark that the fire started. And in that use of the lighter, she suffered serious bodily injury and was at risk for death, which was established by the doctors in this case.
All right, defense, it's your motion, so I'll give you final argument.
Thank you, Judge. The indictment is very clear, Judge. During the commission of said assault, the defendant used a deadly weapon with a lighter. Again, there's been no expert testimony from state. The doctors talked about the serious bodily injuries, but no testimony whatsoever that the lighter was a deadly weapon or that the lighter and the manner that it was used was capable of causing the death and the serious bodily injury of Regina Briones. And so that element of the offense, Judge, is what I'm arguing was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and thus the reason for my motion for a directed verdict.
All right. So I'm going to think about your argument for a moment, but in the meantime, you all both have copies of the jury charges. Is that correct?
We do, Your
Yes.
Honor.
So if you all can review those, and then I'll come back and make my ruling on your motion for directed verdict.
Yes, Your Honor.
And let me know if there's anything that you want added, and we'll
Yes, Judge.
put that in. And I'm going to get a copy of it because I have it on the system, but not a copy.
Okay, I can print a copy for you. Judge.
Oh, if you would do that, that would be great.
Printing one for myself. So.
Okay. I see things better, not so much on the computer, but reading it. Oh, can you hear us? Oh, stop video. I'm about to walk into the video. All right, so. Thank you. So everyone, we're going to be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. for